Welcome back to Daily Flash. I'm Andrea Jackson along with Mitch English. If you use Google Bard, Barter beware. Turns out, in addition to reading all your email, Bard can also fabricate emails. Joining us to talk about it is Darius Rafieyan. He is Insider's senior reporter for VC and startups. Darius, welcome back to Daily Flash.
Thanks for having me.
So for those who don't know, what is Google Bard?
Google Bard is Google's answer to OpenAI's ChatGPT, which many people may have heard of, which is it's called a large language model. It's a AI chatbot that can sort of look and feel like a human. It can, craft a wedding speech, or it can help you write an outline for an essay. And OpenAI, which is backed by Microsoft, really beat everyone to the punch in launching a consumer-ready large language model, AI chatbot. So Google kind of scrambled to answer with this thing called Bard, which most people generally agree is kind of a less good version of ChatGPT.
A less good version, I like that. So Bard, we understand, can do a number of things, even compose an email you never sent. How is that even possible?
It's possible using a giant complex thing called a large language model, which I'm not going to claim to understand all the ins and outs of, but it's essentially a very big statistical model that can predict what a human might do based on reading millions and millions of existing pieces of data, like existing emails. The thing that Bard does differently, or what Google is hoping Bard's competitive advantage will be, is that it has access to all of the existing Google services like Gmail and your Google Calendar and Google Maps and travel. So they're hoping that it can be sort of like a personal assistant that can integrate seamlessly into your life. Whether or not it's actually going to work that way, I think is yet to be seen.
When it comes to a level of powerful on the scale, how does Google's AI compare to ChatGPT and the others? I mean, this often sounds like a sort of a souped up version of Siri too. It's hard to keep track of them all.
Well, and that's a really good point, because there is an interesting trade-off where the more powerful it is, the more expensive it is going to be to run on the company side, the more hardware it's going to require, the more, graphics cards, those sorts of things. So Google's Bard is actually a little bit less powerful than ChatGPT, and they're kind of trying to catch up on that front. But they're also hoping that in some ways that makes it a little bit more manageable. So there's sort of this trade-off between power and practicality.
Darius, let's talk about privacy, because this has been a big part of this AI conversation. Is privacy at this point a foregone conclusion?
This is something that obviously is a very prominent issue here. Google already has a lot of sort of privacy concerns built into its very business model. And there has already been some issues of conversations with Bard ending up in Google search without them being intended to. Now, Google has really reiterated over and over that, anything that you plug in here is going to be protected. It's not going to go in front of human moderators. You don't have to worry about it. They say, ending up where you don't want it to. But I think that it's a big unanswered question for any of these large language models. How much of what I'm putting into it is being used to train the model? How much of it is ending up and leaking out into places that I didn't expect? And I don't think anyone has a definitive answer to these questions. I think Google is trying to reassure people, but we'll see.
We heard someone ask Bard to read all of their email and analyze them, and then Bard came back and said, "Be worried about your future." Oh. So, well, I mean, I'm concerned about this. What's your response?
Yeah, I mean, there's also been instances of Bard creating hallucinating emails that weren't even in there. I don't think that we should place too much stock in the psychological diagnosis of these large language models, because at the end of the day, they are just sort of complex statistical equations trying to predict, the next word in a sentence, much similar to sort of autocorrect on Google, but a million times more powerful. So these large language models have been known to, it's called hallucinating, and they have been known to sort of come up with stuff that seems to come out of nowhere. I mean, there was a very famous case of ChatGPT telling a New York Times reporter to leave his wife because it was in love with him. I don't know how much to really place, how much stock to really place in these, because these aren't, at this point at least, sentient machines. They really are just very complex statistical equations, really.
The key phrase there, you said at this point.
At this point, right.
Yeah, well, it's I don't think anyone can say exactly when we reach sort of a Terminator post-apocalyptic scenario, but that doesn't seem to be imminent at this point.
What are some of the things people are asking Bard to do for them, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, people have posted about, asking it to tell you who are the most emailed people in your inbox. Who are you missing emails from? Can you craft responses to some emails? Can you plan a vacation for me? Can you tell me how I can manage my time better? I mean, people are trying to use it for all these sorts of things, but at least anecdotally, people have written and posted about it leaving a lot to be desired in terms of seamlessly integrating into people's lives in that way.
We just have about 30 seconds left, Darius. How can you disable Bard?
Well, by default, a lot of these Bard extension services, which dip into your email and your maps, are not actually activated by default. You actually have to go into the settings and turn them on. And at this point, they're still being called an experiment. So by default, they're not there. It's only for people who want to become test subjects in this experiment.
Darius, thank you so much. For more information on all of this fascinating info on Bard, head to dailyflashshow.com.
Or just have Bard do it.
Or just have Bard do it, yes. Very good. There you go. It is a frightening future we face.
It really
Mitch.
is. And if you just think about this, Google last Wednesday just turned 25 years old, so you can imagine what it's going to be like in the next 25.
Wow.